Okay, folks, here we go. Yes. Yep. Let's go. It is a national holiday. I'm aware of that. I could be just enjoying the day off like so many people are. But because of the news, and especially the news of yesterday, I thought more important to be a vehicle that people could learn and get the latest. Obviously, the decision yesterday, the jury reached a verdict. The jury has spoken. And we're going to be live in 2 minutes. AM 1380, 99.9 FM. Are we good, Gian? Are we good? The sound should be fine. Let me check all of my different. And there it is. Day after. Now, I'm going on YouTube, and the sound sounds fine to me. Yes. I know, Vala. Yep. Sounds fine to me. So, yes, I am. It's right here. Right here. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. There we go. Okay. Okay, so now we're good. All right, folks, we're going to be live in just a moment. Bring you the latest. The jury reached a verdict. Hearing all kinds of nonsense now, and there is a juror that has spoken out, and I'll explain the element of that, of what's the significance of it, if you will. Okay. Well, we're going to begin at 106. Yes, 106. It is a national holiday. Good afternoon, one and all. We're going to bring you the latest. Now, I think it's important. I want to talk a little bit about, I think some people have a fundamental misunderstanding of how various people arrive at where they arrived. I'm going to just check one thing about this, and then we are going to begin. I think, I don't know what to make it today. I think most people are off. We are live right now on X, on Facebook, and we're also live on YouTube. Although, just bear with me because I just want to check one element regarding our YouTube feed, which I believe is totally fine. I'm not sure why it's not coming up exactly like that, but nevertheless, we will begin. All right, folks, it is the day after verdict was reached. This portion of our program, and it's brought to you by PR Landscape Materials and Garden Center, 3688 Quaker Lane in North Kingstown. They have everything you need to make your property a showstopper at PR Landscape Materials and Garden Center. And look for their Facebook page. They have annuals, perennials, trees and shrubs, hanging pots, 10-inch, 12-inch moss baskets, hanging impatiens, pansy, marigold bags, large selection of beautiful patio pots, vegetable plants and herbs, tropical mandavillas, hibiscus plants, and more. They're a full-scale nursery. They're Rhode Island's #1 garden center. It's PR Landscape Materials and Garden Center. They're open 7 days a week. Gift certificates are available. Call them 401-295-4399. It's PR Landscape Materials and Garden Center. Now, I believe later today, I'm going to be speaking, I think, with two of the jurors. One is confirmed, and then the other one, I believe, we're going to talk to. I believe right now, and I'm looking also for ways to authenticate it, because then some people will just say, he didn't talk to anybody. One alternate I'm going to talk to after we're done. And then there's a juror that right now, tentatively, I will speak to. But we're going to right as of now, neither one want to use voice, audio, or visual, which is fine. So I have a lot of questions, but it'll be posted, conversation, some of their thoughts on DePietro.com, which is brought to you by the Cowesett Inn, 226 Cowesett Avenue, West Warwick. Lunch, dinner, drinks in the lounge. They're waiting for you at the Cowesett Inn. And folks, don't forget, it is a warm day out, by the way. Propane Plus, call them today, 401-885-4209. All your propane needs are in Massachusetts, 508-252-3359. You can depend on Propane Plus for all your heating and cooling, and online at propaneplus.com. Residential or commercial, put in your zip code. It's propaneplus.com. So there is a juror that spoke with TMZ. I recognize him. He was juror number 4. And on X, I did share. I'm not surprised about that's the platform that and the individuals that he spoke to, because some people may not realize, but as a matter of fact, Alan Jackson, very, very tight with TMZ. And I find it interesting that the first juror they get to come forward is his first interview is with TMZ. And I could play the whole thing, but it's out there for those that want to. Karen Reed, juror, says he felt she was innocent. You know, it's also funny. I mean, there are people reaching out to me. I've heard from a bunch of people. And then I start a series of questions of trying to verify. And this is juror number 4 named Jason. Someone else contacted me this morning. I'm juror number 4. My name was Dylan. I didn't really believe that. And so, but anyhow, just so we're clear. Now, he said he doesn't think that she hit him, and pointed out jurors were shown video about the taillight. Jason said Karen was, Jason saying totally innocent. That would mean someone else was responsible. He had no clue who could be responsible. Does that make sense to anyone? So there was no conspiracy theory really entered in it. And he said this. I started to listen to a brief part of the interview. So now you have various interviews. Michael Proctor, boy, that was a ridiculous hit piece on 2020 last night. But I'll go back and listen to the whole thing. I think it's the jury initially, they said, had a verdict, then recanted, came back with the verdict 15 minutes later. It was about the OUI charge. So I started to listen and get more about that. Maybe I'll dip into it. But folks, just so you understand, how do I feel on this day after the verdict? Just so I'm clear, notice the juror doesn't say what he thought could have happened to John O'Keefe, but you have a right, if you follow and watch, whether it's Facebook or YouTube or X, what have you, you have a right to know. I think that's fair. How did you reach the conclusion that you're at? And I feel when O.J. Simpson was found not guilty, I didn't think, oh, wow, they got the wrong person. I didn't think that. I don't think that now. I don't think they had the wrong person. I will listen, you want to give some credit, not making excuses. Probably the smartest thing that Karen Reed did was get Alan Jackson. Because Alan Jackson, I believe, Hank Brennan was outgunned. And Alan Jackson, he is a win at all cost. You know, some people think that they're win at all cost. He is a win at all cost, that guy. And I want to be very clear. I mean, obviously, I've been around him a lot. I've seen him a lot. I've spoken to him. He won. He got his client off. I think it's interesting that they buried Hank Brennan. The selection there were a number of things the defense did well. Getting Robert Alessi on. Alessi was burying them in just eating up time, tiring them out, and then filing all these motions. Somebody had to respond to them. I think Hank Brennan was outgunned. He was up for the fight. But I feel Special Prosecutor Hank Brennan was it was kind of like showing up in a sense to a gun battle with a knife, because Yannetti's a good attorney. He's got a good reputation. He knows the Massachusetts court system. He practices there. He's got an office in Dedham. Miss Little, they all had a role. Did it help having a defendant that was totally plugged in? I don't know. I mean, I don't think they'd say, even if she wasn't helpful, Karen Read, I don't think they'd say that. But there are some people are contacting me almost as if I bet on the wrong team in the Super Bowl. It's not about that. To me, you have a right to know. I believe the case that the Commonwealth put forward. As I've spoken in the past, I follow facts. I follow instinct. This case was presented to me by someone with the defense 2 years ago, July of 23. Now, why is that? Well, I have a big following in Southeastern Mass. And so it was like, hey, you could get in on this, like a ground floor opportunity in a sense. You could get in on this, right? Like, you have a platform. A lot of people talk about you. You're independent. I looked at the case. I then spoke to I really spoke a lot about it with my attorney, Tim Dodd. I spoke to another attorney. I spoke to some police officers that I know, and I trust their judgment, and I bounced a couple of things off them. And in July of 2 years ago, July of 23, and by the way, I was being told this case is never going to trial. So I didn't know if it was going to go to trial. But my response to the person who presented it to me was, I don't believe it. I don't see it. I don't believe the conspiracy. I don't believe, and how did I look at it? There was no motive. There was no murder weapon. I didn't believe, I'm talking July of 23. Remember, 24 was the trial. 25 was the retrial. 2 years ago. When you're looking, and I've covered enough cases, you look at motive, means, and opportunity. I didn't see any motive. I didn't really see an opportunity. And there was no murder weapon established to me. I've never bought, they threw them out on the lawn. I didn't believe the Google search. I didn't know, I didn't know what to make of the quote, dog bites. At this time, we didn't even know about phones and everything else. I'm talking just the crux of the conspiracy was presented to me. That Karen Read, this was July of 23. And by the way, I was also being told, we don't think this is ever going to go to trial. But if you'd like to get involved, blah, blah, blah. I didn't believe that number of people could be in on a conspiracy. And by the way, for those that, hey, I followed this case because I thought it was interesting. And I attended the trial, last trial, this trial. This is right up my alley. I find it interesting. Obviously, spent a lot of time on national television. There's also a Fox Nation streaming that they sent me the link. I haven't had a chance to watch. Obviously, the crowd noticed my interest as I walked out of the courthouse. But just so you understand, some people were saying, I didn't come into this like a finger in the wind. Where's everybody? Oh, is everybody on this side? Oh, I'll go. No. July of 23, I looked at this. Actually, there was another attorney I spoke to as well. I did speak to Wendy Murphy. That's true. So, but I spoke to my own attorney. We looked at it. We had court documents. I didn't buy it. And by the way, in this trial, they jumped off the third-party conspiracy. They didn't even do that, this trial. They didn't have them in the house. The Google search was proven not to be true. I still don't believe those are dog bites. They never got him in the house. They never got him in the basement. This time around, Colin Albert's name wasn't even mentioned in the trial. So what I'm saying to some people is I was vindicated by this. I'll say this, I was vindicated by the defense not doing third-party culprit. I know some people would say, well, the judge wouldn't let them. The judge wouldn't let them because there wasn't proper evidence. So I want to talk about the witnesses. I want to talk about the reaction. Karen Read, that's it. The criminal part of this is over. But let's talk about what's going to happen going forward, and especially the witnesses. This portion of the program, though, folks, is brought to you by Kids Club on the Pike. Call them today. Now, reserve summer camp starting up. Kids Club on the Pike. They're right on Plainfield Pike on the Cranston-Johnston line, right off at 295. Kids Club on the Pike. Call them. Still time to get your child involved with their summer camp. 401-443-5336. Maybe it's for a week. Maybe it's for a month. Maybe it's for the whole summer. Call them. Reserve your spot. Kids Club on the Pike. And again, remember, this is a fantastic spot for any youth celebration. It's built and geared for that. 401-443-5336. So where does this go now? I have bad news for the witnesses. I have very bad news for the witnesses because the mob is not going anywhere. I know a lot of people would like this to be over. Now there are people throwing out there the search for the real killers. Now, as much as people could laugh at that, right? It was kind of like the laugh with OJ, right? Searching every country club for the real killers. But what makes this a little bit different is, I think yesterday was a good example. Hear me out. All the people that were there yesterday, they like this life. And many of the people on YouTube, that's a lot of them, they don't want it to be over. They have their channel. They have their followers. They don't want to go back to what they had. This is their new life. All the people yesterday that were there, they don't go what? Put away the pink? They don't want to. They're part of something. That's why they came out. So the bad news for the witnesses, I believe, I mean, I'd love to be wrong on this, but I don't think I am. This emboldens them. How much will Karen Read influence them? I don't know. That's an unknown, I should say. That's an unknown. She seemed to take great pleasure in watching family and friends of John squirming in the courtroom. She did. I want to be very clear. She was found not guilty by a jury in that courtroom. I think Alan Jackson got away with way too much with the judge. They were allowed witnesses. You could argue they shouldn't have. But I want to be very clear. It wasn't, I think people misunderstand. I wasn't trying to pick who was going to be successful. I was following the trial. I felt that Hank Brennan, the Commonwealth, he had presented a very credible case prosecution that I believed. I think it happened exactly the way Hank Brennan mapped it out. I think it's interesting that with this case, with some people, they think what I'm saying and what Hank Brennan said, who I thought did a fantastic job, they think that what we're saying, that we're the conspiracy people. It speaks volumes that with some people, they think it's logical that he went in the house, was attacked by a dog, beaten in the house, or the garage that emerged in this one, thrown on the front lawn. And all of these people are involved in a conspiracy. It speaks volumes. They think that's more logical than the Lexus was put in reverse. Boom, clipped him. I didn't hit him. I may have clipped him, and then she left him to die. They think that we're delusional. And being around them, I will not miss being around those people. It's odd. It's the conspiracy crowd. They have a false sense. It's a total mob mentality. It's a false sense of confidence. They think that they have all this information because they're part of the group. But it's not going to go away, because there's people out there that see and hope and envision there'll be money in just keeping it going. The search for the new killer, and they put out stuff all the time. It doesn't matter with the conspiracy. Nothing's ever disproven with the conspiracy, because they just move on to the next little tidbit. What did we hear? The defense had a major bombshell. Brian Higgins had a proffer going. He is flipping. None of it pans out. But like I've tried to explain, it's the guy in Times Square with the sign walking around that says the world will end tomorrow. I've told the story. I worked in New York. I used to walk by that guy. One time on a Friday, I said, listen, I normally never stop, but I'm curious. It's Friday. I've seen you out here every day this week, and every day you have that sign. And I saw you here yesterday. So, what's the deal? And he has a cup. And he said, right, what does the sign say? And I said, the world will end tomorrow. He's like, right, tomorrow. See, when you do that, it's always tomorrow. I'm not saying, listen, he wasn't violent. He wasn't disturbing anybody. Some people were giving him money. But it's like a hint into the conspiracy. But I want to be very clear with you, because there were people saying it's 80-20. And, people are saying she's not guilty. It won't be proven. Listen, I don't follow that. I looked at the case. The more I've learned about it, I realize that 2 years ago, I was right on the money. As many of the things that they presented have melted away and fallen. The Google search, not proven. We got the data from the Lexus. That strengthens my belief of what happened. We got the cell phone of John's cell phone. I believe that I can't reconcile how someone could look at this and nod and say, no collision. I think there's a lot of things at play here. Don't get me wrong. And there's a lot of things you could go after. A lot of this falls with the state of Massachusetts, the Commonwealth, how they treated the case, how normal, regular people would be inclined to think that justice would prevail. But I want you to know, those of you that either listen on the radio, AM 1380, 99.9 FM, or watch on YouTube, or watch on X, or follow on Facebook. And I want to, and I realize there's a lot of new people, but many, especially the Facebook people, I covered the Officer Dolan case from Pawtucket. The Pawtucket police officer, he was off duty and shot the teen because he didn't like that they were driving fast. It's right on Newsnick Hill Road. Now, I covered that trial. They had him. He was a police officer, so I don't blindly defend the police. I haven't defended Hanley, who's still fighting, the Providence thing. So, but Officer Dolan, to me, they had him nailed dead to rights. However, I was in the courtroom when he took the stand. Now, again, he was an off-duty Pawtucket police officer. He was driving home, I think, to Coventry. He went after these kids that he's claimed passed him, were driving fast, pulled over. They were frightened. They were 3 teens that were getting a pizza before the NBA Finals. And then he shot one of them. He shot the driver. And I thought the state of Rhode Island, I thought the Peter DeRosa's office, I thought they presented a great case. I thought the kids were a little argumentative on the stand. Could have used a little help. But nevertheless, they had video, the whole thing. But when he took the stand and he talked about his military background and he talked about being a police officer, and he was calm and he was poised, he was composed. Yes, sir. No, sir. And by the way, he had a very good attorney, Stephen Colucci. I walked out, there was a break in the courtroom. I walked into the hallway And someone that was there said, "What do you think?" And I said, I think, oh my God, I think he's going to get off. I could see the way the jury was looking at him. So my point is, I don't drill down. I don't go in a rabbit hole. I was watching it. With this situation, I will be curious to hear the words of the jury. Because admittedly, to me, what else? I mean, let's just step out for a moment. I was saying, I thought it was too much to ask that there was no collision. The juror that talked to TMZ, he seemed confused about the taillight. He seemed confused about ARCA. He seemed confused about whether or not he was actually struck by a vehicle. That's the defense. That's Alan Jackson. That is, he muddied the waters. Alan Jackson, you want to talk about keeping his eye on the ball down the field. He did. And he was burying. I think it's interesting. He looked at Brennan and thought, this guy thinks he can do it alone. Because the people with him were average at best. Jackson was like, we're going to bury him. That's what I think. We're going to bury him with requests, with all different types of information. We're going to overwhelm him. I mean, from what I understand, Hank Brennan was working all hours. I thought Hank Brennan's closing was great. I thought the ARCA data was very strong. I thought the cell phone stuff was great. I did. I thought Peg O'Keefe was powerful. I don't understand how a jury could say, after this, we still don't know what. I mean, at what point do you, folks? Here's the thing. This is not the Kennedy assassination. This is not the most complicated case. She went forward and she floored it, going her own words, and backed up and hit him and left him. Why didn't people see him? I don't know. They weren't looking for him. What about Lucky? I don't know what to make of that guy. I don't. But in this particular situation, Karen Read, other than the OUI, was found not guilty. So, hey, fair is fair. Alan Jackson, Bob Alessi, David Yannetti, Miss Little, they just, listen, they put together a strategy that won. I just think Jackson's the difference maker. That's just how I view it. I could be wrong on that. Somebody could say, no, you're wrong, unless he's the brains of that operation. I don't necessarily believe that. Jackson in from LA. He is. I believe you remove him from this. I don't think that happens. He handled her very well. And she's not easy, Karen Read, who bumped into me going into the courtroom yesterday. I was in the courtroom. It was tough for the O'Keefe family. And I want to touch on that, folks. Folks, this portion of the program brought to you by Roofco Rhode Island. Call them today. Get your roof inspected. 401-868-7149. 401-868-7149. Roofco Rhode Island. Wind damage, leaky roof, missing lifted or curled shingles, granules in the gutter, damaged chimney flashing. Call Roofco Rhode Island. They'll give you a free estimate. 401-868-7149. They'd be happy to inspect your roof for wind damage. Give you a free estimate. Hey, it improves the value of your property, of your building, of your commercial business. 401-868-7149. So yesterday was interesting. If you watched Court TV last night, they had, and I don't fault them, Vinnie Politan said, he turned to me. I could play this, but it's just, and said, I want to play this, get your reaction. They played. I'm leaving. I was in the courtroom, and I want to thank the director. They knew I'd been there since April 2nd for jury selection. It was a long trial. I'm glad it's over. It would have been, it's not the verdict I thought it was going to be, but the people that work at the court, terrific. The people I've met, the dealings with Court TV, my friend Paul Morrow, I got, Fox, many of the people I've met that work in and around, connected with the case. The Krauskys are fantastic. But so they played the clip of me walking out. Now, Hank Brennan, what I was told, he wanted to walk out the front, and the state police said, we don't have enough people to protect you. So we want to, this is our call. We're going to bring you around back. The O'Keefes didn't go out the front. So I was the one that walked out the front. So Vinny said, what was that like? I'm out. 2,000 people. There he is. I was waiting for them to start shouting, give us Barabbas. Barabbas was behind me. So 2,000, they play the clip, 2,000 people booing as I walk down the steps. Now, little background. I get it. I think a lot of people, that's not the reception you want. When I played basketball in high school and played for Hendricken, any game we played, the other team, that was their biggest game. And they'd pack the stands and yell, you suck, everything else. And I'm telling you, you learn to you drown. It's not there. And I've interviewed, some pretty successful athletes. I covered the Patriots. And I remember I interviewed, and I know this is a little dramatic, but I interviewed Joe Montana at the Super Bowl in Jacksonville, Patriots, Eagles. And what I talked about with Joe Montana, and he signed my football and so forth, was he said that at the end of the game, and they're going to come back, all he does is focus on the end zone, because there is noise in the stands, and there's a blimp overhead, and linebackers are blitzing in on him, and he just zones in on the end zone. So how did it feel? Hey, listen, my thoughts at that moment, I felt bad for the O'Keefe family. I felt bad for the witnesses. I feel terrible for Hank Brennan. I feel bad. There are people who really sacrificed for this. I feel bad for the first responders that came into court who were called liars. I feel bad for people that went into this with the belief, and they were doing the right thing. Like Nuttall, became a paramedic to do the right thing. And the same thing with Officer Devers and the members of the state police who were doing the right thing. I think Hank Brennan, he didn't have to do this case. People talking about the money, you can make a lot more as a criminal defense attorney. But that's what I was thinking. So, and then what did I do? I set up and we went live on X and Facebook and YouTube and also TikTok. And at the peak, we had almost 30,000 people watching, which is a new high. But the answer is it's just noise. It doesn't mean anything. I know it's cliche, but the whole Patrick Henry sticks and stones break my bones, but like 2,000 people booing you, flipping you off. It doesn't mean anything. But to me, what was more difficult was watching the O'Keefe family when the not guilties were being read, and we could hear the crowd below. I could see Hank Brennan was crushed. I could see Peg O'Keefe and Paul and their family. And I think it's real nerve of Karen Read to say, I want to find justice for that buffalo that was lying on the prairie. Wow. Folks, this portion of the program brought to you by ServPro of Providence. Remember, when disaster strikes, fire, flood, mold, water damage, fire, mold, storm recovery, fast, thorough, professional, ServProProvidence.com. Call them 401-941-5500. 401-941-5500. I share their social media, 401-941-5500. They're fast, they're professional, and they're available 24/7. So maybe you're a business owner. If you ever have a fire or, oh my God, our basement's flooded with water, call ServPro Providence, 401-941-5500. 5,500. I did have people yesterday contacting me. You picked the wrong side. It's not a matter. This isn't, I wasn't placing a wager on a game. To me, I was vindicated because they abandoned the third party conspiracy. They never got him in the House. And it wasn't because of the judge. They didn't have the evidence. And so much of the media just said, well, they didn't do it this time. Some of the supporters said, yeah, they're focusing on what? No collision, no collision, no collision. What is that? Why were those people protesting outside D&E Pizza? Why were people showing up at Colin Albert's school? Why were people going after the homeowner and Brian? They didn't even testify. They didn't even call them. It never made sense to me that a teenager was described as being the lead person that went after John O'Keefe. I didn't believe it 2 years ago. I was vindicated. Even the defense gave up on the conspiracy. But you can't talk to that crowd because they're not looking for the truth. I've been saying that. Now, what's next? I want to talk about that. I want to talk about what's next. But folks, I want to remind you about Quality. Hey, call Corey today. Quality Seal Coating. They seal coat crack filling, pothole repair. They can resurface a basketball court, pickleball court, tennis court, epoxy garages and patios, decorative concrete flooring. Call them. Free estimate. 401-283-9815. 401-283-9815. Quality Asphalt Seal Coating. So a couple things. What's next? There will be the civil trial regarding the O'Keefe family and Karen Read. I don't know when that's going to start. It's a whole different dynamic. I know last night on Court TV, Vinny, who was terrific. I really enjoyed working with him. I mean, I love my friend Julie Grant, Grace at Court TV, Matt Johnson. Court TV, they deserve so much credit. They came in, they really grabbed this. They understood how big it was going to be. Doing the live shows with them were terrific. But he was saying with if people sue Karen Read, slander, defamation, that they'll have the right to go and extract information from them. I mean, I think that's fine. I don't think those people have anything to worry about. So what do I think is going to happen next? The first thing up is going to be civil suit. Is going to be, the wrongful death. The O'Keefes are suing Karen Read. It is different. O.J. Simpson was found guilty in that lawsuit. Number two, I mean, it could change, but I still believe there will be charges coming on Karen Read for witness intimidation charges. I know some people think it's justified. Well, what if, take the mob, make the defendant a person of color, make everybody outside white. And what if instead of free, they were chanting, hang him, hang him? I don't know. I'm not going to have a perfect analogy, but I believe she's going to face some consequences for witness intimidation. Karen Read now, orchestrated a campaign to go after key people to try to get them to say, I'm not testifying. As I've said, you ever watch The Sopranos? They send Christopher, Paulie, Silvio, and what do they say to Tony? No worries. Looks like the eyewitness didn't see what he thought he saw. He's saying he revised his statement with the police. He pulled a Lucky. It's much easier to just say, on second thought, I didn't see anything. Did I say I thought I saw something? I didn't say. It's much easier to do that. So I'm anxious to see. I recognize some of her supporters are going to say, well, there's no way they could go after her. Let's wait and see. I don't know about that. I don't know the timeline on that. I believe there will be some lawsuits here. I would think so. I mean, that's how they got Alex Jones. People were portrayed as killers. People were portrayed as murderers. People were portrayed as cop killers. What are we talking about? Now, if they had just made innuendo in the courtroom, that's one thing. This was all way before the trial. So I repeat, why were people outside D&E Pizza? Chris Albert wasn't even called this trial. Chris Albert wasn't even at 34 Fairview. Chris Albert was friends with John O'Keefe. And John O'Keefe took his nephew into D&E Pizza that day. And Chris Albert texted him, hey, come on over. We're drinking. Chris Albert went home. Why were people protesting outside D&E Pizza? Well, for what? Why were people going after Colin Albert? Colin Albert wasn't on 34 Fairview the same time that John and Karen were. So why were people calling him a killer? I don't know. That's how they got Alex Jones. See, all this stuff sounds good when you have the mob and they're going around to the houses and they're terrorizing these people online. The problem is, the problem with Alex Jones is the whole thing of freedom of speech. Speech is free, but you got to pay for the lies. So I don't know what's going to happen here. I don't know how there were people arrested outside D&E Pizza in Canton. How do they justify? Why were you there? Why were you harassing that guy? Why were you terrorizing that business? What happened in the second trial that led you to believe he was involved? He wasn't even called. What about Colin Albert? Now, again, all this stuff, it sounds fine until, they get in a courtroom and then it's real. And then you're going to see people turning on each other. Then you're going to see people saying, that's what I was told. It wasn't sufficient when Alex Jones said, I believed Sandy Hook was a hoax. That wasn't good enough. It's not enough to just say, well, that's my belief. You're using a platform to put it out there. Ask Alex Jones how that worked out for him. How's it going at InfoWars? Bankrupt him. He does have freedom of speech. It's the lies you're going to pay for. And by the way, certain people, whether it's Karen Read or others, the money they're making is going to be taken by the O'Keefes and others. Karen Read's going to make money on a movie. Well, that's good for the witnesses. That's good for the O'Keefes. Because right now, I'm willing to bet she's a little low on funds. So her not being in jail, that's not a bad thing. Let her earn. Maybe she's part of a movie. It's a blockbuster. Karen Read makes 10, 20 million. Boom. Good. More money for Paul O'Keefe, Peg O'Keefe, the niece, the nephew. It's not a bad thing. Folks, this portion of the program brought to you by Arch Design Builders. Now remember, if you're looking, maybe you're thinking of a new kitchen, new bathroom, new basement, new deck, new special project, Arch Design Builders. Call them today, 401-207-4124. 401-207-4124. Arch Design Builders. Family business, integrity, quality, family owned and operated, custom build, incredible customer service. Call them. Ed Meticulous, 5-star builder. And Roxanne, she goes the extra mile. Arch Design Builders. Call Roxanne, 401-218-9707. 401-218-9707. Maybe you're thinking of a special project, a deck, or maybe you want to add on a remodel. Maybe this time, new kitchen, bathroom. Maybe you want to redesign your house a little bit. Call them, set up the meeting, let's dream a little bit. Show them the space. Many times, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. They'll say, we did this similar thing for these people. This how, oh my God. You know what the question always becomes with Arch Design Builders? When can you start? 401-218-9707. Now, I want to go back. Karen Read was found not guilty of the criminal charges against her. That's it. They can't try. Not on those charges. Not on those charges. I don't know if she's going to face charges. Remember the witness intimidation that could come into play. I'm not convinced her legal problems are over. I believe many of the players involved in this saga are going to be dealing with each other for many years to come. So, but remember, she wasn't found innocent. She was found not guilty. The jury said that the Commonwealth did not meet the burden to prove the case in the courtroom. I, I felt differently. I felt differently. Um, I don't know what's going to happen to this movement. But I don't think they're going to go away because I believe there's too many people vested in this. There's too many people that say I love this and I love it. They know each other. I mean, there were people. That woman drove from Texas, drove alone from Texas, because that's normal. To me, Alan Jackson was the difference maker. Alan Jackson, I mean, the guy, he just looks for every angle. They never quit. They're like, if you've ever seen water coming down a wall, if you block it here, it just goes around. I mean, he just keeps looking. See, to me, he's the mastermind. He's the quarterback. It's not her. I think he wants people to think it's her. It's not Alessi. It's not Miss Little. It's not even Yannetti. Nope. There were a number of things about this case that were unusual. But to me, having a guy in from LA, first time around, he looked at them as bumpkins. I think at different times they felt that this was slipping away from them. They got their witnesses in, they put on their defense, and apparently they provided enough doubt. They picked a jury. They tried the case, and she walked free. That's it. So I don't think this entire chapter is entirely over. That part of it, that chapter is over. But the Karen Read story, appearances, we'll see. Do the witnesses speak out? Will there be more charges against her? I think it's a little frightening, this whole thing of people chanting, let's go after the real killers. That sounds very inflammatory to me. That sounds yelling fire at a crowded theater. There were people there yesterday that I encountered that they don't want to believe anything other than the conspiracy. And I encountered them yesterday, as I said. These people, they're talking about blood in the garage. They're still talking about the Google search. They want to keep the blinds shut. They want to keep the curtains closed. They don't want it doesn't penetrate. They have the world in the story that they're comfortable with. They don't want anything to change that. In their world, she's innocent. She was framed. Proctor, dog bites, Google search, basement, no collision, planted evidence. They don't want to hear anything different. Listen, I didn't say it's normal. I didn't say it's healthy. It's not. As I've said, I'm thankful I'm not related to anybody like that. I don't have to be around anyone like that. The anger that they exhibit is frightening. The anger, the hatred. They're just so, but that's what it's like when people get sucked in deep to the cult. And it becomes a cult. Come on. Everybody's in pink. Everyone's making the same sign. Everyone just keeps regurgitating the same stuff. I think there's many Billy Bush and some of these people, they don't want it to go away. Like this crowd is amazing. All you do is you say Proctor, Proctor, dog bites, no collision, and things light up. I'm glad I had a chance to cover the case. I knew it was a big case. I know a story. I didn't believe the conspiracy 2 years ago. I didn't believe the conspiracy 1 year ago. And this time around, the defense dropped the conspiracy. They just went for experts, right? The guys from ARCA. I don't know if he was hit by a car. La Posada, the breather. He was 7'2", bitten by a bear. Marie Russell, yeah. They got them in. They got them in. Alan Jackson got the judge to agree to let them testify. Folks, to the victor goes the spoils. But make no mistake about it. It's also, would this have gone on in a Texas courtroom? No. Would this have gone on in a Florida courtroom? No. Would this have gone on? There's so many other states that wouldn't have tolerated all the nonsense. Massachusetts, the Northeast right now, Rhode Island, Mass. Keep in mind, everyone that becomes a judge in Rhode Island, they come out of the Rhode Island State House. So what does that tell you? Well, it means they're a Democrat. Massachusetts right now, you have Maura Healey. You have Michelle Wu. You have Elizabeth Warren. You have Markey. It's that atmosphere. It's that progressive atmosphere. They're actually kind of anti-police in many ways. There's a lot of different elements to this, but what I'm telling you is there's other states, and I think other judges that could have shut this stuff down. Like, no, we're not. No, he lied. This person, these witnesses lied to the court. They're not testifying, period. You're from LA. You lied. In this court, we caught you. Boom, you're off the case. Let her appeal. Next. That's it. We're not going to have 2,000 people standing around the courthouse chanting, wearing a color. They're there to intimidate the jury. We're not going to tolerate it. Move. Boom. That's it. No more discussion. They don't do that. They don't do that. Marie Russell. She's a dog bite expert. Huh. She's never testified before. As a dog bite expert. Found the case. I'd love a first-class trip from LA to Boston. Folks, this portion of the program brought to you by J. Perry Paving. Get your driveway paved. High quality, fair pricing, exceptional service, free estimate for any project. It's letter J, J. Perry Paving, 401-732-1730. 401-732-1730. And remember, J. Perry Paving. They are the best when it comes to veterans. If you're a veteran, maybe you're related to one, call them 401-732-1730. 401-732-1730, letter J, J. Perry Paving. And also look for them online. What did it feel like yesterday? Yesterday kind of felt like when they announced that OJ was not guilty. I never thought, wow, I wonder who did that then. I didn't think that with OJ. I thought, wow, he beat the system. Casey Anthony got a not guilty. Aaron Hernandez, don't forget, he got a not guilty. Karen Reed got a not guilty. But I was in Arizona when the New York Giants beat the Patriots. I was there with my son, and we had to stand there in the stands with all the Giant fans and the confetti, and then ride back, to our hotel. And it felt pretty lousy because we were there to see them win. We'd gone to Houston and saw the Super Bowl there. We went in Jacksonville and saw the Super Bowl there. Yeah, it's a lousy feel because when you believe in something, the other side, they believe in something. I think my side is based more on truth and fact, but no, As I've said, I feel terrible for Paul O'Keefe. I feel terrible for Peg O'Keefe. I feel terrible for the witnesses that stepped forward, who did the right thing. I feel bad for that morning, Kerry Roberts and Jen McCabe. Boom, in a moment's notice, in a blizzard at 5 o'clock in the morning, came out to try to help their friend John O'Keefe. As I have said, I think that speaks volumes of him. I think, to me, the Commonwealth, Norfolk County, I think they let a lot of people down. They didn't take this thing serious from the beginning. You can argue casual police investigation. The Proctor text did not help, but I've always thought it was a distraction. But Karen Read, under our system, was found not guilty, except for the OUI, by a jury of her peers. All right. I think we're going to be live later. I think so. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. If you're listening to the radio, stay tuned for the 2 o'clock news. I may be back live on this platform later. Enjoy this national holiday.